So it's no secret that I'm an avid Sony shooter through and through and have been for the last 4 years. But today, things may change. Things may be a little bit different because I'm trying and testing the new Canon EOS R5c. It's all thanks to this guy that it's happening. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
So yeah, I've got a bit of an open mind when it comes to this stuff because obviously I've used Sony for so long, but the only reason I've used Sony is because I started on Sony and it's what I felt comfortable with. But I have nothing against Canon or Lumix or Nikon, to be fair. I think Canon has a better colour straight out of camera than what Sony does. That's no secret. I speak about that quite often to people. So
I think you're right. The main point there being what you start on is what you get used to and what you kind of carry on with.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, I think the only reason I haven't switched is because I've invested so much money into Sony. And Sony's slowly up in the game. So it's interesting to see what the A7S III does against the EOS R5c. Yes! So this wasn't going to be part of the video. That's obviously why it's not in the vloggy part. Obviously all the footage you've seen so far is from the A7S III, but I want to do a test. I want to do a blind test, so get your pen and paper ready or whatever you want, go down to the comment section below. So here's some footage from the A7S III and the EOS R5c, and I want you to take a guess before the timer runs out on each clip to tell me which camera took that shot. So in 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Yeah, your whole face.
All right. God, it's so hard vlogging.
Oh yeah, because you can't.
It's a 24 and I can't actually see the screen. I'm on the A7 III. Okay, so first impressions. I like it. I don't know if you even know if you're in this. I can't even tell.
I'll go here.
The problem with 24mm
And no flip screen.
and no flip screen. God, so 2018. You know what? The colours on the back of the screen. It's better than a Sony. It's a lot better. It's nicer to look at.
Canon and Panasonic LCD screens are the best I've ever used. It's just a really natural representation of what you're gonna get in your image. And I've always enjoyed that because I think, what I've always said is, when you've got a nice image on the LCD screen, it's more motivating and inspiring to shoot, isn't it? It makes you want to pick up the camera and go out and film more.
That shutter is just...
You're loving it.
Oh, it's good. It's nice.
You like it, don't you?
I really like this. It's good to use. So in terms of usability, I think the Canon's really good. It's a little bit hard to get used to because I'm so used to using one of these, which is a Sony. But mate, it's them colours. Them colours just look so good. So what do we think about the Canon EOS R5c? The biggest problem I found was the usability. I only had this camera for around 2 to 3 hours, and when you've been a Sony user for the last 4 years and you're so used to the Sony menus, where the buttons are, what everything is, and you haven't set the camera up how you would like it set up, then it gets a little complicated moving to a completely different system and having to test, review it, and see what you think really. One thing I did notice between the R5c and the A7S III is the size difference. The Sony is very tiny in comparison to the Canon, but when it comes to weight, it is the complete opposite. The Canon feels really nice in your hands, and it's probably because it's a little bit bigger. The thing I found with Sony is because it's not very tall, when you're holding it with a grip, your little finger starts to slide off the very bottom and you end up just holding it with 3 fingers and you have the palm of your hand. The back of the Canon is a lot bigger also because it has this new cooling system. The original EOS R5 had a bit of a problem when it came to overheating, and obviously with this being the cine version or the cinema version of the R5, they needed to stop the overheating problem, so they've added more fans to pull the hot air out and, fingers crossed, push the cool air in to keep it nice and cool inside. Obviously that will stop it from overheating, making longer recording times when shooting in RAW. That's one advantage that the Canon has over the Sony, because it can record 12-bit internal RAW, but when it comes to the A7S III, you can't record any kind of RAW footage internally. You have to use external recorders such as the Atmos 5. The biggest thing between the Canon and the Sony is the color. The color is just totally different between the two, and I'm gonna hold my hands up right now and say that the Canon does look a lot nicer straight out of camera. The Canon just gives you a really nice base to start working with, and Sony is just completely different to that. The Sony has more contrast, more saturation, deeper blacks, and the Canon just has this really nice filmic look about it, lifted black slightly, and it's like you could do anything with it and it will just look really nice. But regardless of the actual color profile that you get out of the cameras, because you're recording in 10-bit or 12-bit RAW, you can color match both cameras almost identically, if not identically. Filming in log and the high data rates will give you enough information to be able to color match any of the image you get out of these cameras. When it comes to photography, well, it's 45 megapixels against 12. Yes, you don't need 45 megapixels, but to have that extra detail and to be able to crop in post, unlike you can in the 12 megapixel from the A7S III, obviously the Canon is a lot nicer to work with. One thing I really love about the EOS R5c is the menu system. When it comes to using the menu system, when you're in the video mode, you literally get a cinema menu. There's none of the photography elements in it, but when you switch over to the photography part of the camera, the cinema part's gone and it's purely photography. The Sony also has this, but the menu system from the Canon is a lot nicer than the Sony one. The Sony one is slowly improving, but it's still not quite there yet. There's a lot of menus and folders and you can easily get lost in it. The annoying thing about the Canon is that if you're in video mode and want to go over to photo mode, you have to move the switch past the off point, then into the photo mode, and vice versa. Each time you do this, the camera wants to turn itself off. It has to do the sensor cleaning and then turn up and boot up again. This obviously only takes maybe 5 to 10 seconds, but if you're having to hybrid shoot and you want to go between photo and video mode, say if you're hybrid shooting at a wedding, this isn't going to be possible. Unlike on the Sony, you can have photo mode open and press the record button and it instantly switches into video mode for you, or they are next to each other on the dial, so it's really simple and easy to use. Overall, I think that the Canon has a slight edge over the Sony. Obviously I haven't tested the EOS R5c in terms of low light capability, but if I'm honest, I can't imagine it to perform as well as the low light king that is Sony, and the dynamic range isn't quite as good as what the Sony offers. But in terms of color and the image that you get out of the camera itself, Canon wins hands down. If I'm honest, I think the difference between these two cameras comes down to personal preference of the user. There's around £700 between the A7S III and the EOS R5c. Both cameras have very different systems, and one camera is better than the other when it comes to a certain specification and requirement, but the other one may be better than the other when it comes to something completely different. They are quite simply for two different types of users. For instance, Sam really likes the EOS R5c and prefers it over the A7S III from Sony. Sam says he much prefers the Canon over the Sony due to the color that you get out of it, but I prefer the Sony over the Canon because of the size of the actual body. And because of the low light capability of the Sony, and knowing that I can shoot at 12,800 ISO in S-Log3, then that's just a bit of a deal breaker for me when it comes to what I need. So will I be saying goodbye to the Sony and hello Canon? Not this second, but it is very close between the two, and if I was to get a Canon EOS R5c or any of the Canon cameras which are coming out at the moment, I wouldn't be disappointed. I just want to say a massive thank you to Sam once again for letting me be part of the test and letting me get hands-on with the Canon EOS R5c. Thank you so much, mate. I really, really do appreciate it. If you want to check out his video where he goes into more detail about the A7S III and the EOS R5c, I'll leave a link down there in the description box or just up here for you. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And if you do, I will see you right there. Thank you very much for watching.